Now, if you don't know, there's a new Friday the 13th game that's coming, but unfortunately, we don't know a ton about it right now, and we don't have any kind of release date. But a game that has been released recently is Killer Klowns from Outer Space. And today I want to tell you if Killer Klowns can kind of fill that void that Friday left for a lot of us. I want to talk about things like map design and atmosphere, and simply at the end of the video, I'm going to tell you if I believe this is a legitimate not just replacement, but maybe a way to scratch the itch of Friday the 13th and how hard that hits some of us that really love asymmetrical horror games because Friday, in my opinion, is still one of the, if not the best one that's ever been made. So we'll talk about all of that stuff. And of course, if you like what I do, consider subscribing, hit your notifications so you never miss a video or live stream from me. Let's go and get into it. Now, the first thing I want to talk about is atmosphere, because this is one of the things about Friday that really made it special, right? You're isolated, you're in the woods, and you're scared. Your fear goes up, and sometimes, I mean, that's going to really affect your character. And while Friday the 13th movies always had like that similar approach where you're isolated, especially the first like three films, first four films really. You're isolated. You're in the woods. You're alone, and that's something I really honestly got from the first and second films, especially once they start whittling down through the counselors. You're left with Alice or Jenny. That's when the isolation really began. And unless you were working with a team in Friday the 13th, that's the same type of feeling I always got. You kind of knew if you didn't have escape items or you didn't have a gun or something that if Jason happens to pop up around you, you're probably going to be done. Now there wasn't a ton of hiding spots in Friday, right? There was big areas, big gaps in between, certain cabins and outhouses and stuff like that too. So that always added to the tension a little bit as well. You didn't have a bunch of thick bushes and stuff that you could just kind of sit in, right? It was just, you're out in the open. There might be a bush or a tree or something here that I could maybe hide behind, but it was never like this really good hiding spots like Texas Chainsaw or even Killer Klowns has. So atmosphere all the way around, whether it was Jason chasing you, whether it was your fear level going up, or simply that feeling of just being alone, Friday the 13th absolutely nailed it. Killer Klowns, the atmosphere is much different. So if you're looking for strictly an atmospheric type of experience that's close to Friday, I don't think you're going to find that here because now we have settings that are in the suburbs. We're at an amusement park. We are at the clown summer camp, which might give you the maybe the most maybe nostalgia from Friday or kind of the closest that you'll get to a Friday like map in Killer Klowns. Now, one thing I do appreciate they did here is there's a lot of lights and stuff, right? Police station is well lit up. Everything is fairly well lit up, but there are some dark places in each one of the maps. There's some more isolated areas in each one of the maps, or at least a darker atmospheric environment. But for the most part, unless my fear level goes up, I don't really get that same type of feel from Killer Klowns like I did with Friday the 13th. You almost get this kind of false sense of security because of where you are. You see things that are very familiar to you, right? Houses, police station, whatever, and all of that stuff just doesn't raise my level of fear. It kind of drops it a little bit. Now, if you come across a clown, and Killer Klowns is something we'll talk about here in a minute, but they can take you out, right? But it's different. So when we talk about kind of brutality and fighting back and stuff, we'll get more into that. But overall, if you're looking for a game that's close to Friday the 13th when it comes to atmosphere, I don't think you're going to find it with Killer Klowns. The next thing I want to talk about is the brutality because that's something you definitely got with Friday. So whether it was Jason using the environment to his advantage, cracking backs, turning heads, or simply ripping arms, this is probably amongst one of the most brutal asymmetrical games you're going to find. And they took great care and inspiration from the movies because the kills were not like a Halloween, right? I love the Halloween franchise, don't get me wrong, but very simple type of kills in Halloween. Now, of course, they've always, tried to enhance them and make them bigger and better, and that's how every slasher has always been. But Friday the 13th, from the start, essentially, has always had this kind of cinematic approach to kills. So whether that's Mrs. Voorhees hanging up her victims so the final girl can find them, that's something they always kind of did. Well, Michael Myers kind of did that too, where he put them in certain places where they can find them, even from the beginning. But I just felt like it was always a little bit more cinematic in Friday the 13th, and that's what you got out of the film as well. It was super brutal, which made it super enjoyable. Killer Klowns, one thing I appreciate they did is they also give you the option of choosing up to 4 kills. Whichever one you want to use in a match, you set them before the match, and then you can use them as you see fit so it doesn't get so repetitive. Friday the 13th had the same type of system. You could choose from 4 different ones, no matter which one. As long as you had them set there, you could use them. The kills are a little bit different though, right? Whether it's the pie barrage or the pizza box kill, which is one of my favorites. Actually, it is my favorite. Or if you have one of the clowns making a balloon sword and running it through the midsection of one of the victims and simply laughing about it. It is a different feel. And while they're, I'd say, similar in brutality, Friday the 13th is a much more serious and, in that respect, a much more brutal experience. Now, talking about the kills, you have a wide variety of weapons in Killer Klowns. So, whether that's the cotton candy ray gun or the popcorn bazooka or even the boxing gloves that Shorty wears, all of these things can be interchanged between all the clowns. And you get to carry 2 of these weapons at the same time. You got a primary and secondary. So, that always makes it pretty fun whenever you're tracking victims and using these different weapons against them. I think you will find that it's similar to Friday the 13th, so that will give some fans enjoyment there. And it's going to be closer than what you'll find on the atmosphere side of things. Let's talk about map design because, Friday the 13th, I don't want to say their job was easy, but aside from the mainstays in the movie, which were cabins, houses, things like that, boat houses, docks, the lake, those kinds of things. And I'm not going to sit here and say, oh, yeah, they had an easy job. But when it came to map design, they kind of had an easy job because we didn't know if there was a bridge anywhere in that map, for instance, like the first one or something. We didn't know if there was a path that ran around this side. We had no idea. Maybe there was a street that ran through the middle of this frickin' place. We simply had no idea. So they could expand out from those mainstays, from those places that you see and recognize that better be right, and they could just add things. They could add additional cabins, woods, paths, roads, lights, whatever they wanted to. And so at its core, I think the map design in Friday was simpler, and they had the luxury of doing that. In Killer Klowns, they have taken a lot more attention to detail here because they have to. The police station, Debbie's house, Big Top Burger, all of these places have to kind of fit into what you would think an amusement park would be, right? They just don't have the luxury of just throwing a couple of rides in there. And also, they have to have your escapes in there as well. So, this amusement park, fortunately, it was on the water. So, they were able to make that fit in. And that's one of the familiar things you're going to see between the 2 games is that each one of them actually has a boat escape, right? So you always have water somewhere. So that'll give you a little bit of familiarity. One thing you won't do as a clown, though, is get in the water, right? Jason would just go after you no matter what kind of exit you were using. And that, again, was part of the brutality and part of the scare factor where even if you got that car running, if Jason uses his fast travel and he is able to get in your way, you're done. You can try to back up the car and do all this kind of stuff, but if you're playing against a good Jason, you are absolutely done. If you get that boat started, boom, Jason can get in that water, and he moved even quicker there. So almost every part of the map was accessible in Friday, where this one, it's kind of cut off. Even if you try to throw a cocoon in the water, it's not going to happen. You get a little bit more restriction there, but I just think the map design overall, with some of the set pieces and areas in Killer Klowns that are super recognizable, they had to probably take a little bit more care to make sure that those things fit in while still making it fun for a video game setting. Let's talk about the movie references because this is important in a single IP, right? This is something that Dead by Daylight, they have the luxury of taking all of these horror icons and throwing them into their games. By the way, I do not think that Jason Voorhees is coming to Dead by Daylight. I just want to throw that out there. But I'll make a separate video talking about that. Regardless, the movie references in Friday the 13th were fantastic, from the type of kills, the way Jason moved in each one of the films, to the weapons he carried, to the environmental kills, which were freaking fantastic, the music, super iconic, the locations, the cabins, things like that. All of these things you easily recognized. You know, you even have some familiar characters to tie it all up really nicely. You know, Shelley and the Stoners from the third one, especially. Those are the three I can think about right now. But, anyways, man, you know, all the movie references in Friday the 13th, it all felt just really good, really familiar. And that is one thing you'll find with Killer Klowns is the set pieces, again, the police station, Big Top Burger, the way the clowns interact with the humans. It's kind of goofy, it's silly, but again, they are deadly at the same time. You know, you have Shorty's, uppercut, knock your block off type of stuff. The kills, of course, the super iconic pizza scene, which is awesome. You know, that's one of your kills you can unlock. Mike and Debbie from the movie, of course. The circus tent that we don't get to explore right now, but I'm sure they will add this as a map in the future. Of course, that's out there. The balloon dog, everything. I mean, they paid really, really close attention. You even have the invisible car that you can eventually unlock for the clowns. And on the other side of that, the humans as well. You have the ability to fight back, which is what they did in the movie. And again, we never got to see, do these killer clowns ever come back? Well, we don't know because there's simply just one movie. But overall, I think both games nail it. They're similar in that way where they took great care to make sure that you're going to get an authentic experiences with both IPs. And the last thing, the enjoyment on both sides, because these games have to be enjoyable if you want people to play them. And Friday the 13th, very simple concept, right? But executed perfectly. If you got that random chance to play as Jason, you were excited right off the rip. If you played as a human, now you're like, okay, I gotta, I gotta figure this out. I gotta make a plan. I gotta, do a bunch of looting and hopefully come across these escape items, right? And I get the same feeling from Killer Klowns. Sometimes you're gonna come across every escape item, right? Sometimes you don't come across any, and you gotta wait until the very end to escape through the Terenzi brothers. But I find that both games are super enjoyable. So if you're looking for a good asymmetrical experience, that's going to be fun on both sides when you play as the clowns, of course. Sometimes you can get overwhelmed and overmatched by the humans, so that is one area that's different. Although you could stun Jason and you could throw firecrackers down and stuff like that. But overall, I don't think they're as formidable. I think, honestly, at times I find it more enjoyable to play as the humans in Killer Klowns than the clowns themselves because they can get clowned sometimes, right? I guess it just depends on the match. I like playing on both sides, but I prefer human in Killer Klowns. When it came to Friday the 13th, I really liked playing as Jason. You just felt like you were that supernatural force for a single game, and it was just freaking awesome. And then playing as survivors was just terrifying at times too. And I always play these games like that. I rarely try to sit here and rush and get out of the maps really quickly. That's kind of a new phenomenon, I guess, with TCM, as far as I know, anyways. Because those maps are really small. Everybody can go through one exit. They've definitely eliminated that here, where there's only certain people that can go through certain exits. There's 7 victims as opposed to 4, and you have much bigger maps and much more area that you have to cover. When it comes down to it, there are a lot of things that are similar between the two games. We talked about some of these, your ability to choose your different kills, the pings on the map. Some of the areas kind of feel like a Friday the 13th experience, and some of the goofiness of it too. That's a part of Friday the 13th too. I've talked about how serious that game and series is, but it could get goofy at times as well, and they added some of that. They added all your typical stereotypes, which Killer Klowns has as well. So on that front, you're going to feel familiarity between the two games. But I think the atmosphere and the way the killers play is going to take away from the experience a little bit if that's what you're looking for. Because one thing I always got from Friday the 13th, and maybe you have a different opinion, let me know down below. But one thing I always got from that game is that it's as terrifying as a third person perspective asymmetrical horror game can be. The atmosphere was just spot on, but it was also dark. It was more serious of a tone, and so if those are the things you're looking for, I don't know that you're going to get that from Killer Klowns. But I'm just going to be honest with you. I think Killer Klowns is a fantastic experience. I had somebody tell me this in chat the other day. They're like, I don't know if $40 just seems really high for a game like this. Well, most games, AAA games, whatever, you pay 60 or $70 for what, 20 hours maybe? Well, in a game like this, you can easily get 50, 75, 100 hours or more of enjoyment. If you just play with friends once a week, for 3 or 4 hours or whatever, this game will most definitely be probably one of the better bang for your buck type of experiences you're going to get. I think it's really fun. I think it's great. I do not think, though, that it is a straight replacement, or nor do I think it will totally fill the void of Friday the 13th. But it'll get you close, at least until we can get a Friday the 13th game. That's my opinion, though. I'd love to hear yours down below. What do you think about Killer Klowns so far? Have you played it? Are you waiting for the official release? Or are you still on the fence about buying it? Let me know what you think down below. Big thanks to you guys. See you in the next one. And as always, hold 'em down.